Tourists discovered a hidden cave in the mountains. What they found inside was shocking. Some travelers uncovered a secret treasure cave concealed in the highlands. What they encountered inside would completely upend their view of human civilization. Clara Delgado stared intently into the lens of her camera, determined to capture the perfect moment of a golden eagle soaring high above. A majestic bird circled over this remote area early in the morning near the Rockies, as if trying to catch their eye. As an experienced traveler, nature guide, and amateur photographer, she'd learned to read the signs nature left behind. Animals often lead to the most exciting discoveries. "Ben," she suddenly called, nearly dropping her camera in astonishment. The eagle's flight directed her gaze towards something that shouldn't exist. A perfectly geometric shadow cast on a hidden rock partially obscured by a cascading display of autumn hues. "Look, you need to see this," she said. Luke Carter, her hiking partner of 5 years and fellow guide with local adventure tours, carefully climbed down the rocky slope to join her. They ventured into this uncharted mountain region to scout new trails for adventure tourism. Yet what Clara noticed was nowhere to be found on their maps. Their hands trembled with excitement as she pulled out her binoculars from the protective case that hung by a cord. After wiping the lenses with a microfiber cloth, Luke rested the binoculars on the nearest boulder to gain a clear view. The powerful 10x42 optics allowed the rock's surface to sharpen into focus, revealing details impossible to spot with the naked eye. Thanks to the crystal-clear view, Luke could distinguish sharp, straight angles on the rock that were clearly not natural. The autumn cascades did not seem random at all. They appeared to cling to something resembling a deliberately cut extension. The thick vegetation suggested an absolute darkness that hinted at great depth. Such total darkness could only occur in massive caves. "This is unbelievable," Luke murmured. Lowering his binoculars, he noted that the entire area was composed of solid granite. There shouldn't be any cave or passage in a place like this. He rechecked the topographic map, which only deepened his confusion. This zone had been thoroughly surveyed just last year. How could they have missed something so enormous? The discovery had come at the most unexpected moment. Lately, their tour company had been struggling to compete with larger operators boasting flashier marketing and the latest equipment. They needed something unique to make their tours stand out from the crowd. The unknown cave system might be exactly what they needed to revive their business. But as they approached the mysterious opening, both felt it was more than a simple tourist attraction. The design was too perfect and the location too cleverly hidden. It was something entirely different. The climb was tough, and despite their many years of experience, they had to proceed with extreme caution. The rock faces were almost vertical at times, offering only a few reliable holds. Clara led the way, her rock climbing skills proving indispensable as she secured the ropes and found a safer path upward. "Check this out," she called to Luke. At first, everything seemed stable, but then a warning came too late. The rock beneath Luke's foot suddenly crumbled, sending him tumbling down a sheer drop of 100 feet. Only their safety gear and Clara's quick reflexes averted a disaster. "I'm okay," Luke assured in a clear voice, even though he was on the brink of a mishap. Yet something about the area felt off. The arrangement of the rocks and the weather, none of it matched what they usually encountered in these mountains. When they finally reached the cave entrance, both were gripped by a deep sense of awe. What appeared to be a simple shadow below turned out to be an intricately carved door adorned with complex designs and strange symbols. The entrance was a perfect rectangle, featuring 8 tall pillars and 6 wide bases, each edge clearly etched, as if by ancient tools. "This isn't natural," Clara whispered, running her fingers over the smooth surface. Even though the material should have weathered over decades, or even centuries, there were no signs of erosion. And those symbols were nothing like anything she had ever seen before. Luke grabbed his satellite phone to call for backup, but there was no signal, a rare occurrence in their high-altitude location. Their radio equipment also failed to operate. They were completely isolated from the outside world. "We need to head back," suggested Luke, a professional guide who always balanced caution with curiosity. Send in a real archaeological team here. But Clara was already switching over to her backup battery. We're the most experienced guides in this area, Ben. We're the ones best prepared to handle whatever this is, she explained, even though no scientist had ever ascended to the highest shelves of any library. Then Clara pointed to the darkening sky as a storm began to brew. We still need to take cover. The weather had turned seriously dangerous. Dark clouds were moving much faster than expected, the temperature dropping rapidly, and distant thunder was rumbling. Perhaps the cave was their safest refuge. As they stepped inside, the bright LED lights of their gear illuminated the interior. Instead of a harsh natural tunnel as they had expected, they found themselves in a perfectly circular corridor that led deep into the mountain. The walls were smooth and covered with the same mysterious symbols seen at the entrance, though here they glowed with a faint, eerie light. "Look at this detail," Luke admired, studying the walls. The markings weren't merely scratched or randomly painted. They were part of a solid, integral material. He pulled a small sample kit from his backpack, but when he tried to scrape off a bit, his steel tool couldn't even leave a scratch. The corridor stretched on for about 50 meters before opening into a vast chamber that seemed to defy the laws of physics. The ceiling soared hundreds of feet overhead, far higher than the surrounding mountain landscape would allow. The room's layout left them utterly speechless, with rows arranged in perfect concentric circles. Crystalline structures, each resembling a sarcophagus, lined the walls. Yet these were not typical ancient tombs. Every camera they had was surrounded by technology that seemed both incredibly advanced and strangely archaic, emitting soft pulses of multicolored light that bathed the room in an otherworldly glow. "This really can't be happening," someone murmured. "In fact," Clara said, quickly snapping pictures with her camera as she tried to capture every detail. Even while speaking, her scientific mind was fixated on the evidence proving this wasn't a joke. The dust on the floor showed no signs of recent human activity. The air was fresh yet oddly still, hinting at an advanced ventilation system that had been dormant for a long time. As they moved deeper into the chamber, they noticed that the crystalline structures seemed to react to their presence, their glow intensifying ever so slightly as they passed by. The air began to warm, and a barely audible sound in the background gradually grew louder. At the center of the hall stood a massive crystalline formation, its surface covered with the same symbols found throughout the complex. Unlike the other structures, this one appeared to be fully active, emitting a soft, steady light. "Clara," Luke called out, his voice tight with emotion. These weren't mere graves or storage rooms. Through transparent panels in each block, they could see what looked like perfectly preserved human bodies, though their facial features and clothing didn't match any known historical period. At that moment, they heard a sound that made them both freeze, a resonant voice echoing from one of the side rooms. Instinctively, they moved closer together, their electric tools ready as they stepped into the darkness. "Hello," came a clear voice speaking in English, though with an accent they couldn't quite place. "I arrived a bit earlier than expected," the voice continued. A man emerged from the shadows, appearing to be about 50 years old and dressed in an eclectic mix of styles from different historical eras. His smile was warm and genuine, and the depth in his eyes made both guides feel like eager students in the presence of a master. "I'm a doctor," he said. "My name is Dr. Thompson." He introduced himself as he approached them. "And you have just uncovered one of humanity's greatest secrets, the temporary archive." He touched a few of the symbols on a panel, and suddenly the room came alive, illuminating dozens of additional spaces that had never been seen before. For the next several hours, Dr. Thompson explained the true nature of what they had discovered. The complex wasn't just a hidden cave or archaeological site. It was a repository of human knowledge and technology preserved across different eras and realities. "We are archivists," he explained while guiding them through the room. "We have existed throughout the entire history of humanity, collecting and safeguarding knowledge from diverse time periods. This institution was one of several temporal junctions where different eras intersected. He explained that in the archive rooms, archivists from various periods lived together, each contributing to the collection by ensuring that life's knowledge was preserved, regardless of what happened in any specific time frame. Some came from humanity's past, others from a possible future, and they all worked together to guide human progress. But why reveal this now? Clara asked, still recording everything on her camera. Why did you allow us to find this place? His expression turned serious. Because humanity is at a crossroads. The discoveries you make in your time, quantum computing, consciousness transfer, temporary mechanics, could lead either to unprecedented progress or to catastrophic destruction. We have been waiting for the right moment to steer these discoveries properly so that they are used wisely. And you think we are the people who can help with that? Luke asked skeptically. We're just tour guides, he added. Dr. Thompson smiled knowingly. You are much more than that. Clara, your background in ecology and photography is ideal for documenting and understanding what we have here. And Luke, he continued, your extensive experience in leading outdoor expeditions means you know how to guide people not only across challenging terrain, but also through complex, new ideas. To emphasize his point, he led them into a room filled with holographic screens displaying potential future timelines, some showing brilliant images of achievement and progress, others depicting dark scenes of conflict and devastation. He explained, your discovery of this site was no accident. Since you both came here, I have chosen you to help humanity survive the coming decisive years. Outside, the storm worsened, yet inside the building it was warm and secure. We cannot reveal everything at once, he cautioned. He added, the shock would be overwhelming. But we can begin sharing some of the findings, guiding humanity toward a better understanding of its own potential. How did you come across this place? He asked as he lowered his camera. I must say, we've been trekking these mountains for years and have never noticed anything out of the ordinary until now. Dr. Thompson then became reflective. I discovered this back in 1983 while working on quantum experiments in the field at CERN. We were studying the interactions of particles, and my readings kept showing anomalies that shouldn't have been possible. The data confirmed the existence of these so-called time anomalies, zones where quantum mechanics behaves in unexpected ways. He pulled out a worn leather journal filled with detailed measurements and charts. I tracked these anomalies in various locations around the world, but the strongest signal came from these coordinates. The university even funded an expedition under the guise of studying high-altitude particle behavior. When I arrived, my instruments recorded significant shifts in the magnetic field. The readings were precise enough to lead me exactly to this spot. It was small and mostly hidden behind a rockfall, but its geometric patterns caught my eye. They matched the mathematical sequences we observed in our quantum experiments. Luke, I studied these charts in a journal. The measurements of background radiation were exactly as predicted. Radiation waves have been detected within the cave, following known physical patterns. The levels were not dangerous, but they were clearly artificial. In the deepest chambers, there was technology far beyond anything we had seen back in the 80s. It took me 3 years, he admitted, to understand the basic principles behind their operation. Soon, other scientists who had accompanied Clara began examining the atmospheric conditions at the base camp. I had never seen a place like this, Dr. Thompson interjected. I initially reported only the natural cave formations. Some discoveries require the right moment and the right people, like you two today. Your backgrounds in geology, photography, and environmental science make you uniquely qualified to document and comprehend what is here. After several hours, they started to grasp the reality of the situation. The storm outside subsided. Clara and Luke gathered their equipment and prepared to leave the cave. When Dr. Thompson escorted them back through the portal, both felt the weight of all they had learned, urging them to stay and discover even more. The descent felt surreal, and they both understood the significance of what had been uncovered. The golden eagle they had seen earlier circled overhead once more before disappearing into the clouds. Did that really happen? Luke asked as they descended along a familiar path. Clara shook her head, lost in thought. I'm now overwhelmed by a fever of possibilities. The evidence is clear. That evening, they met in Luke's cabin, where a sturdy wooden table bore witness to his journey. The photographs of the crystal chambers taken by Clara, along with detailed sketches of the mysterious symbols carved on the walls and Luke's hastily scribbled notes about Dr. Thompson's explanations, covered the table. The images were clear and distinct, proving that this discovery was no hoax. "Look at this," she said, showing one of the photos that depicted a vast room. In the background, barely noticeable yet unmistakable, was a familiar face, a doctor, but much younger, working amid peculiar devices. Luke then retrieved his satellite phone, which still worked, and, as they moved away from the cave, he dialed the number found during their research on the original experiments at CERN. After a brief conversation, his hands trembling, he said, Dr. Thompson was truly at the forefront of elementary particle research in 1983. They mentioned that he had made some truly unbelievable discoveries, but preferred to keep his research secret. He is still listed as a consultant in the Department of Quantum Mechanics. Clara captured that moment on her camera screen. "So what do we do now?" Luke asked. "Just before us, I received a message from an unknown number. Bring in a mathematician tomorrow at 9 in the morning." They sat in silence for a while, and then Clara answered her phone. "I have a friend, Dr. Baker from the University of Colorado. She specializes in quantum mathematics and is working on some theoretical models that might help," she said, pausing as she glanced at one of the symbols on the wall in their photos. In fact, a recent article described those very models. Luke nodded, his face reflecting understanding. "So, Dr. Thompson wasn't the only one leading the charge, was he? He spent years laying the foundations, setting everything in its proper place." They exchanged glances, realizing that their discovery in the mountains would not only change their lives, but could transform everything. What do you think about this? An unbelievable discovery? Have you ever come across something completely unexpected while hiking?